Well, good evening, everybody, or good morning, everybody. I have no idea what time it even is. Feels like I've been up for a long time, but maybe not. So glad that you guys are with us today. It's been an exciting morning already, just watching people go public with their faith in Jesus, understanding that Jesus doesn't just make life better, but understanding that Jesus actually makes them better at life. That really is so much of what we're going to be looking at and learning together today. We are in the middle of a series right now. It's called The Jesus I Never Knew. And throughout this series, what I've tried to help you understand is that yes, Jesus existed. I think most people understand that. But I don't think a lot of people understand why Jesus matters, especially for their life right here, right now. Why does Jesus matter? This figure who lived almost 2,000 years ago, what could he possibly have to offer me as an American living in the West in the 21st century on the other side of the Enlightenment period? A lot of people, they think about Jesus and they just immediately think about things like God, they think Savior, they think sacrifice, they think cross. And if that's all you really think, that's great, but what it will eventually lead to is this idea that Jesus might have something to offer me for the next life, but Jesus probably doesn't have a lot to offer me in this life. And I just want you to know, and I want you to learn in this series, that nothing could be further from the truth. And so in week 1 of the series, we saw that Jesus is the one who sees us in our pain and in our suffering. I said that week that we all suffer, but we don't have to suffer alone. I need you to hear that. A lot of you are on the struggle bus. You're dealing with different things in life right now. And I don't want you to go through life thinking Jesus is distant. Jesus saved me for another life in another place, and he doesn't really care all that much about my life right here and right now. He does. He sees you in your pain and suffering. And I said that week that he's not just with us in our pain and suffering, but that he actually has a purpose in our pain and suffering. Jesus has the ability to bring great things out of awful situations and circumstances. Jesus can use that pain and suffering in your life to make you stronger. He can use that pain and suffering in your life to make you more compassionate towards other people, more loving, more generous. He can use that pain and suffering to wake you up to the reality that you are not going to live forever, but that you will spend forever somewhere. He can use it to deepen your faith and strengthen your relationship with him. And so in a very real way, Jesus has all kinds of implications for our life in the here and the now as it pertains to the reality of pain and suffering in our world and in our lives. In week 2 of the series, we saw that Jesus is the one who can change our life. Now, if you remember, which was just last week, that was a hard one for a lot of people to accept because there are a lot of people in this world who do not believe that people can really change. In fact, we talked about it. We said that there's a lot of old catchphrases that are flying around in our world. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. A leopard can't really change his spots. And so we wrestled with this idea, can people really change? And where we landed is on this idea, this belief that a man can't change his life, but Jesus can change a man. And I hope you believe that. I hope you look at your life and where you wish you could change. I hope that you start to see that Jesus is the one who can change your life. This week we got to move on. We got to jump into another story, learn another lesson about the person of Jesus Christ. And this week I hope you'll learn that Jesus is the gateway to a far better life. Now I need you to hear me say this. I'm not talking about the fact that Jesus can change the bad things that are in you. Okay, that was last week. And does that make life better? You better believe that will make life better, okay? But this week, what I'm talking about is the fact that Jesus doesn't just change the bad that is in us. Jesus is the one who has all kinds of good things for us. And so let me kind of start the message in this place today. Not in this place as in Ocean Springs. Let me start it all the way over in St. Louis, okay? If you've ever seen a picture of St. Louis, if you've ever been to St. Louis, if you've ever seen a video, then you've probably seen this picture or this structure at some point in your experience with the city of St. Louis. In fact, some of you don't know anything about St. Louis, but you recognize that structure. That structure, some people call it the Arch of St. Louis. Some people call it the Jefferson National Expansion Memorial. But a lot of people refer to that structure as the gateway to the West. That's right. The gateway to the West. And so think about this country for just a minute. When this country was first established, settlers arrived on the East Coast, and most people lived on the East Coast for a considerable period of time. For example, in 1790, 95% of the population in this country lived east of the Appalachian mountain range that runs all the way from Maine all the way down into Georgia. In 1803, a little deal went down. Anybody know what the deal was? Couple of you history buffs, yes, the Louisiana Purchase. The rest of you just kind of sock that one away. Kind of important to know, okay? It's our neighbors right next door, okay? That little thing went down called the Louisiana Purchase. And as more land became available, more people started to migrate west. Now, the reason that people went west is because they were told, or they believed, that the West offered the possibility of a better life. They were told that if you go west, you can get land. If you go west, you can find gold. If you go west, there's all kinds of great opportunity out there, but you have to travel west. And so people in masses started moving to the west in search of a better life. By 1820, 25% of the people in this country were now living on the western side of the Appalachian mountain range. Eventually, people would cross over the mighty Mississippi River. That's us. Yes, we're proud of it. Kind of a big deal. They would cross over the mighty Mississippi River, and they would find themselves standing in the city of St. Louis. They would find themselves standing there at the gateway to the west, a structure that hadn't even been built yet. But there you would find men and you would find women who were standing at the gateway to the west with a pioneer spirit. And they're going to walk through that gateway, and they were going to follow a trail into the west in pursuit of a better life. Now, I want you to think about that. That's not just what they were doing. That's what we're all doing. I mean, isn't that what Americans are all about? We're all searching for a better life. Everyone you know is searching for a better life. This is who we are as Americans. In fact, it's in our Declaration of Independence, right? We believe that people in this country should not just have the right to life. We believe that they should have the right to liberty and to the pursuit of happiness. Now, sadly, a lot of these people who were trying to migrate to the West, they were heading west, but they never found the better life they were looking for. In fact, a lot of early Americans, they ended their lives with total disappointment. Very few found gold. A lot of families were led into hardship, and a lot of people even died along the way, all because they wanted a better life, but they were looking for it in the wrong place. A lot of people today are still looking for a better life, but they're looking for it in the wrong place. Be honest. We're trying everything we can to find a better life. We'll try all kinds of things. We'll go all kinds of places. We'll travel all kinds of roads. And if we're honest, we have no idea where that road is really going to lead. We're a lot like the early Americans. So we'll hop on that road and say, let's try drinks or drugs. We'll decide the better life is going to be found if I can get into a relationship. For some of you right now, you're thinking the better life would be if you could get out of a relationship. Right? You think, man, that's where I'm going to find the better life. For some of us, we think, man, the better life will be found when I buy all kinds of toys. On the opposite side of that coin, I saw an Expedia commercial not all that long ago, and they said, you're never going to have a better life by buying toys. You're going to have a better life by traveling places, right? And so we think, okay, it's not toys, it's travel. I've got to travel the world. I've got to go new places. I've got to experience new things. But for some of you, you think the better life is going to be found in having kids. For some of you, you think the better life is going to be found in moving houses or in changing jobs. In essence, we're trying anything and everything that we think might lead to a better life. I know a lot of people who have tried all kinds of things in an attempt to find this better life that we're all looking for. And some people end up looking back at the things they've tried and they say things like, it was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. I know other people who have tried all sorts of things, and no matter how much they try, there is an emptiness inside of them that they can't get rid of. If any of this is resonating with you, then I want to introduce you today to the Jesus you never knew. Because today I'm going to introduce you to a Jesus who said, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Not this empty life that always leaves you craving and searching for something more, but real life that is deeply satisfying and very fulfilling. This is what Jesus said with his own mouth, John chapter 10, verses 1 through 10. He said, very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, it's important, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. When he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Then Jesus said it again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in, and they will go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Now, I want to remind you, according to verse 1 in this passage, Jesus is speaking specifically to the Pharisees. That's important because Jesus knows something about the Pharisees. He knows that they are some of the most influential people in that community. Unfortunately, they are using their influence and they are steering people in the wrong direction. These guys don't understand the ways of God. And so they end up teaching people a way of life that is not really better. It is actually miserable. The Pharisees are like some of you who are all about the rules. These are all the things that I have to do, and these are all the things that I could never do. And if I just follow all the rules, then I will have a better life. The Pharisees are the reason that some of you are here thinking, Christianity will ruin all my fun if I actually buy in and get baptized like the rest of these people. You watch these people and you're not celebrating with them. You're grieving for them because you think they're never going to have fun another day in their life, right? This is the way so many people think, right? And so Jesus knows that these Pharisees, with their rules, with their really long list of things to do and don't do, that they don't really lead people to experience a better life. And so Jesus rolls up on the scene not just to confront them. Jesus is going to correct them because they're misleading the people who are truly searching for a better life. If you want to find and enjoy a better life, you have to be very, very careful who you listen to. You better be really careful who you trust. You better be extremely careful with who you allow to influence your life, because there are a lot of people in your life who will steer you in the wrong direction very, very quickly. In fact, Jesus is talking about these kinds of people who will influence your life. He says about these people that they will climb into your life like a thief or a stranger is climbing into the pen with the sheep. He describes the ones who will ruin your life with 3 different descriptors just to get us started. A lot of metaphors in this passage. He talks about the thief, he talks about a robber, and he talks about a stranger. So check that out, moms. 2,000 years ago, Jesus was talking about stranger danger, okay? And so here he is. He's going, man, you better be careful who you allow into your life, because there are all kinds of people who will steer you in the wrong direction very, very quickly. That's important for you. Because there are a lot of you who are here today, and you've got people in your life that really probably don't need to be in your life. Students, you need to know that your friends, they do not care about you like your mother and your father care about you. I promise you that. You're at odds with them, and life's not all that good because your parents are telling you one thing and your friends are over here trying to get you to do another thing, and it's creating tension in your life. It's creating tension and wars in your family. You need to know they don't care about you like your parents care about you. They're like the thief. They're like the stranger. They're like the robber. They're not really in it for you. They're in it for themselves. Husbands and wives, you need to know that man or that woman at work, they don't care about you like your family cares about you. That they're not in it for you, that they're in it for themselves to gratify their flesh. And so you got to be careful who you're allowing into your life and who's influencing you in the decisions that you make and the life that you live and the direction that you're heading. Students, you got to be careful about that college professor, that you look up to them, you esteem them, you listen to everything that they say. You're going back to college in just a few weeks. You need to know this. You're going to take their class and you're going to be done with their class. They're never going to talk to you again. Why? Because they don't care about you. They're like so many of the people that Jesus is going to describe. They're influencing you even though they don't really care about you, and they're going to lead your life in a direction that you don't want to go. They're going to steer you in a direction that doesn't really take you into the better life that Jesus came to give. Instead, it takes you away from the life that Jesus came to give. So you got to be careful who you listen to, okay? But Jesus is not just talking about the other influences in your life. Jesus is also going to talk about his influence in your life. His point is that you got to be really careful who you keep out of your life and who you allow into your life. This is why Jesus uses the word gate so many different times in this passage. The word gate shows up 5 times in just these 10 or 11 verses. It shows up 3 times in the first 5 verses. Then in verse 6, John provides a little commentary, and he says, after all this teaching, Jesus talking about the gate, the Pharisees had no idea what Jesus was really getting at or what Jesus was trying to tell them. And so Jesus comes back and he repeats everything all over again, uses the word gate 2 more times in verse 7 and in verse 9, but this time he is much more clear. This time he says, I am the gate. He is just like the gateway to the west, that if you want the better life, you have to go through him. Now, I need all you city boys and all you city girls out there to pay attention with me for just a minute, okay? Because all the rednecks and people who are on Farmers Only, okay, they already get this, okay? But I need all of us to get this, okay? Here's what you need to know about a gate. The gate is the access point. The gate is the access point. I grew up in East Tennessee, farm community, farms everywhere, fences everywhere, and gates everywhere. And what you learn very quickly is that if you want access to it, then you've got to go through the gate. Just think about the life of a sheep for just a minute, okay? In the morning, a sheep wakes up and a sheep thinks, man, I need something to eat and I need something to drink. If you want to find the green pastures, If you want to find the fresh water, you've got to leave the pen and you have to go through the gate. You go out there and you graze all day long and you get something fresh to drink and you're done grazing and it's getting late in the day and the sun's starting to set. If you're a sheep and you want a safe place to sleep at night, safe from the dark and dangerous world that you live in, then you have to go back to the sheep pen, which means you have to go again through the gate. At times, the sheep would eat the food in the grass and just weed it all down, and it would be nothing but dirt. And so there were times when the shepherds would have to lead their sheep into a distant place, and they were so far away they couldn't get back to the sheep pen that was a permanent sheep pen. And so what they would do is they would make a makeshift sheep pen on the go. Okay, it was pretty easy because sheep can't really jump, okay? And so I know you like imagine sheep when you're trying to sleep like jumping. They don't jump, okay? That's just you and your imagination. But sheep, because they couldn't jump, what the shepherd would do is he would take rocks and he would just stack up rocks and he would create a makeshift sheep pen. He might roll a log over, might throw up a couple of sticks and put them in the ground. And then if he didn't have enough materials, what the shepherd would often do is the shepherd would literally lay himself down in the place of the gate. And because the shepherd was willing to lay himself down, the sheep were safe. The sheep could sleep at night and they could enjoy peace and they could enjoy rest. And so here Jesus is saying, man, you are like sheep. And I am this gate. I am laying myself down so that nothing gets in and so that none of my sheep get out and get lost in that dangerous and dark world. And because he lays his life down, we can have a better life on this earth, not just after our time on this earth is over. In fact, according to verse 10, Jesus would go on and he would say, I have come that they may have life to the full. Not an empty life that always leaves you searching for another fix, searching for another experience, another vacation, another promotion, another new toy, another man, another woman, another home, another shopping excursion. No, he came to give life that was full of joy. He came to give you a life that is full of peace. He came to give you a life that is full of wisdom. He came to give you a life that is full of purpose. He came to give you a life that is full of love. He came to give you a life that is full of rest. How many of you would agree that if you had that kind of life, your life would be far better? I think all of us probably feel that way. These are the things that Jesus taught about. This is the kind of life that Jesus came for us to experience. But the only way that we get that kind of life is by going through Him. Verse 9, Jesus said, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. You're going to find everything that you need in me, through me. In order for you to have that kind of life, a better life, you have to go through Jesus. And when you go through Jesus, you have that life now, but you also have that better life forever. But you have to go through Jesus. Now, I need you to understand that's only part of the equation. It's only half of what Jesus is really teaching in this passage. You have access to a better life, but there's also a thief who has access to you, and you need to know that. The thief is why so many people in this world are dissatisfied with the life that they're living. There are a lot of people who don't understand the thief. They don't recognize the thief. They have no idea what the thief is doing in their life. They don't see how the thief is out to destroy God's good plan for their life, or how the thief is destroying the good world that God has created. And so what happens to us in search of a better life, the thief comes along and inflicts a little pain or a little suffering. And when we get a headache, when we get a little heartbreak, When we experience some pain and disappointment, when we're left with a father wound, when we feel abandoned by someone that we loved or cared about, when we feel rejection, what do? We start looking for something to make us feel better rather than sticking with the one who actually makes us better. This right here is the difference between how people do life. There are a lot of people who are out there in the world and they are dealing with hardship because there's a thief and he's real. And when they experience it in life, they don't know how to respond. And so instead of sticking with the ones who make them better, they start looking for something in this life to just make them feel a little better. They're not content with a life that's full of joy and peace and purpose and love and wisdom and rest. They just want something to make them feel better right here, right now. And so they want a life that's full of fun. They want a life that's full of distraction. They want a life that's full of stuff. Because that will make me feel a little bit better because I don't feel real good right now. You need to know, Jesus, when he talks about why he came into the world, he doesn't talk a lot about, man, I want you to have a lot of stuff. It's not really on his radar, not really all that important to Jesus. Jesus doesn't talk about things like having a lot of fun, right? That doesn't seem to be all that important to Jesus. Did Jesus have fun? Yes, Jesus had fun. We're told that Jesus went to wedding parties and he had fun with his friends. He had fun with his family. But that doesn't seem to be what life is really all about according to the person of Jesus. You see, what happens in your life, what happens in my life is we end up trying to feel better rather than being better. Jesus didn't talk about that stuff. But the thief is more than happy to give you all of that stuff because the thief doesn't really want you to be better. He just wants you to feel better, even if it's a fleeting pleasure that lasts only for a short time and leaves you always craving more. This is why Jesus is saying, man, you better be really careful who you allow to influence your life. It's not just the thief. You got to be thinking about the other influences in your life, like your friends. Let me ask you something about your friends. Do your friends make you feel better? Or do your friends actually make you better? Jesus is saying you need to be sticking with the ones who will actually make you better. Stay away from certain people. Don't let them climb into your life. According to verse 10, Jesus told us something about the thief. He said that the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. And so here you are. You're trying to find a better life. And here comes the thief, and he is trying to ruin your life. Now, if you were to go home tonight and somebody tipped you off and said, hey, heads up, I heard through the grapevine that someone is coming to your house tonight, and they are a thief, and they are going to rob you blind, and who knows what's going to happen. They may even hurt you. They may kill you, because that's what the thief does, steal, kill, and destroy. Okay? If you knew that a thief was coming to your house tonight, would you be prepared? Yes, of course you would be prepared. You would be like that kid in the Home Alone movies. Remember Kevin? Right? Kevin was prepared because he knew the thief was coming. So the question is, how do you prepare for the thief that Jesus is talking about here in this passage? If you look down in verse 12, you'll see Jesus explaining how the thief is going to ruin your life. If you know how he attacks, then you can prepare for his attacks. Jesus comes back to the sheep analogy. This time, he describes the thief as a wolf. Listen to verse 12. The hired hand is not the shepherd, and he does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and he runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. And so if you want that better life that we've been talking about today, then you got to be careful, again, who you trust. These sheep would have thought, we can trust the hired hand. They can't trust the hired hand. But because the hired hand doesn't really care about the sheep, he only cares about himself. And again, there are people in your life that you're trusting. They don't really care about you. They only care about themselves. If you give them influence in your life, they're going to ruin your life. But Jesus doesn't stop there. Jesus says that there's not just a hired hand, other people in your life. Jesus starts talking about a spiritual enemy in your life. And he describes the spiritual enemy as a kind of vicious predator. And so when this vicious predator, like a wolf, attacks the sheep, then you need to know the worst thing you can do is scatter and go in separate ways. Has anybody ever seen National Geographic shows? I mean, come on. Like, the herd has to stick together, and if you deviate from the herd, then you are in major trouble. So hear me say this, Mosaic. We don't scatter. We stick together, because we know that if a spiritual enemy can isolate you, he will destroy you. And yet there are a lot of people who make the mistake when life gets hard of pulling away from the herd. They want to get into things that make them feel better rather than being with the herd that actually makes them better. And when they're doing those things that make them feel a little better, they don't feel comfortable around the rest of the herd who's saying, no, that's not the right way to deal with the pain and the disappointment and the hardship in your life. But you need to know, if you isolate yourself and pull away from the herd, then your spiritual enemy has you right where he wants you. This is why we talk all the time at Mosaic Church about being in a community group. You need to be with the herd. You need to be spending time with other people who are not just interested in making you feel better, but they're interested in actually making you better. You need to know that when it comes to this herd mentality, that there really is strength in numbers. And yet I hear so many people, they talk to me about community groups, and they go, I'm going to get into a community group one day. It's just, right now, my life is just so busy. Let me ask you a question. If you were going home tonight and the thief was coming, would you say, I'm too busy to get up and lock the door? You would never say that. But we say that about community because we don't really believe the thief is coming. We don't really believe that there's a danger. We don't really believe what Jesus is teaching and what Jesus is telling us. But the thief is coming, and we have to be ready. And the way in which we're ready is we live in the context of community with one another, because there's strength in numbers. I do believe that you're busy. I know that you're busy. But if the thief is coming, then our priorities have to change. If the thief is coming, we've got to say, I'm busy, but I got to make sure that I'm busy doing the right things. And that means doing life with people who don't just make me feel a little better, they actually make me better. It's key, but listen to me, it's not the only key. Do I believe, as I go back to the sheep analogy, that there is real strength in numbers? Yes, I believe that, okay? But for a wolf, a big herd of sheep just looks like a really big buffet, right? It looks like all you can eat. But because the sheep are not going to be able to defend themselves from the wolf. And that right there is why I am so glad that we don't just have each other. I'm glad we have Jesus. But because Jesus starts the whole conversation by saying, I am the gate. But he ends the whole conversation by saying, I am the good shepherd. Listen to verses 11 to 18. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and he cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them in also. I too will listen to my voice. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have the authority to take it up. This command I received from my Father. And so listen to me. If you really want the good life, you got to stick with the herd, but you also have to stick with the shepherd. What does the shepherd do for the sheep? A lot of people think, well, he leads the sheep and he guides the sheep and he goes around, he makes sure that the sheep are shaved and that they don't carry too much wool on their backs and, end up struggling. He makes sure that he helps the sheep if they fall down. He feeds the sheep. He waters the sheep. The shepherd does all that. But listen to me. The primary job of a good shepherd is to defend the sheep. I know you and I don't like to think about it, but the truth of the matter is the sheep by nature are weak and vulnerable. I know you think, I'm not weak, I'm strong. You're strong for a sheep, okay? But you're not strong compared to the wolf, okay? And you need to know that, right? We're weak and we're vulnerable. And so the shepherd has to be a part of our lives because he wants to keep watch over us. He's always ready to defend us because there is a wolf out there and he is circling the sheep and he is looking for one to devour. You need to know this about the wolf. The wolf is not afraid of a sheep. But the wolf is afraid of the good shepherd. The good shepherd is not like the hired hand. He's not going to run away from the fight. The good shepherd is actually going to run to the fight because he's going to defend the ones that he loves and cares about. And so, yes, the thief is coming to steal and kill and destroy. But Jesus is coming so that we might have life and have it to the full. When the wolf shows up, you need to know that the good shepherd is going to show up. You need to know that when the wolf is coming after you, the good shepherd is going after him. And so when life gets hard, you got to stick with the herd and you have to remind yourself that the good shepherd is on the scene and he is going after whatever is going after you. According to verse 14, Jesus says, I know my sheep. He doesn't just know you, he knows what's going on in your life. According to verse 13, Jesus implies that he cares about his sheep. He's not like the hired hand who cares only about himself. He actually cares about you. And then finally in verse 11, Jesus said, I will lay down my life for my sheep. And the greatest part of it all is that he actually did it. In fact, according to verses 17 and 18, Jesus said this. He said, the reason that my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have the authority to lay it down and the authority to take it up again. This is how Jesus defends his sheep. This is how Jesus defends his people. He laid down his life on a cross to protect us from our spiritual enemy, from the wrath of God, from all the consequences of a life of sin. And when Jesus did that in human history, this passage became a reality. The Good Shepherd was struck. And when the Good Shepherd was struck, the disciples, they all scattered. They ran in different directions. They all went into hiding. Some of them went into an upper room. Peter made the mistake of going into isolation. He left the herd. He thought, I'm going to follow Jesus and I'm going to go up into this courtyard and I'm going to stay at a distance and I'm going to watch everything that happens. Proved to be one of the worst mistakes he would ever make in his life. Judas left the herd. Jesus got struck, he got scared, he left the herd. What'd he do? He went out and hung himself. Nobody knew where Thomas was or what Thomas was up to. And when all of this was done and Jesus comes out of the grave 3 days later, proving that he has the authority to take up his life again, What did the Good Shepherd do? The Good Shepherd immediately went looking for his sheep, and he gathered them all together, because that's what we need when life isn't going the way that it should. We need to be with Jesus, and we need to be with other people who are following Jesus. We don't need to be out looking for something that will make us feel better. We need to be with the ones who actually make us better. I'm not trying to cope with reality. I'm trying to become strong enough and wise enough and healthy enough to deal with the demands of reality. And the primary place where I grow into that kind of man, the primary place where you will grow into that kind of person, is in the presence of Jesus and with other people who are serious about following Jesus. That's how you actually experience a better life. And so what I want to do as we close the service today is I want to take you back to the one who doesn't just make life better. I want to take you back to the one who makes you better at life. So I want you to bow your head and I want you to pray with me for just a moment. Some of you are here right now and you do not have a relationship with Jesus. Man, that's where it starts. You got to be in relationship with the Good Shepherd. It's not enough to be in church or to be with the herd. You need the Good Shepherd to defend you, to lay down His life for you. And so right here, would you just put your faith in Jesus and say, Jesus, I've been looking for a better life. But I've never seen my need for you until right now. I need you, Jesus, to forgive my sins. I need you to lead my life. I hear your voice, and I want to follow after you. If that's a prayer that you prayed, please let me know. You can do that by filling out the Connect card that's in that seat pocket in front of you. You can then drop that off in the black boxes or out by the Connect desk as you make your way out in just a few minutes. But I want to know that you're putting your faith in Jesus so that we can talk to you about things like next steps, like baptism, or even getting into a community group. For others of you, I just want you to take a minute and I want you to really reflect on this message. I want you to answer the question, who am I allowing into my life that doesn't need to be there? Who's that influence? Who's that voice in my ear? Who's speaking into my life? Who am I trusting that I don't need to be trusting because they're steering my life in the wrong direction? But for some of you, I want you to pray right now about being in a community group. Let's stop making excuses and let's start making progress by moving in the direction that Jesus told us to go. God, I just pray that you would speak to us and that we would be obedient to you so that we might truly enjoy and experience a better life that you came to give. And I pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen.